has said that legally it's not allowed to be released. But the court calls bullshit. Judge Richard Furman said that when you went to the court, quote, information contained in the Epstein grand jury transcripts pales in comparison to Epstein investigation information and materials in the hands of the Department of Justice. So let's move on, Director. You wrote a book called Government Gangsters. You identified 20 individuals in that book. You put me on that list, the top of the list. Thank you. My children find it flattering. 20 of those individuals have been investigated or have had adverse actions. Director, considering that you have identified these people as, quote, government gangsters, will you recuse yourself from making any investigation decisions about these individuals?
Anyone that has been terminated, the FBI has been done.
No, the question
failed to meet the muster, the constitutional
I will
obligation.
work on the audio-visual capabilities.
I'm going to borrow your terminology and call bullshit on your entire career in Congress.
Reclaiming my time,
You've been a
Director.
disgrace to the American
I'm
people.
reclaiming my
You
time.
can reclaim your time all you want.
Chairman, are you going to allow a witness to speak this way?
Mr. Chairman, would you recuse yourself?
Gentleman has no time. Mr. Chairman, would you admonish the witness not to insult members? Gentleman has no time.
Mr. Chairman, just
He will remember.
quick point of order. Could the gentleman be extended an additional 20 seconds to complete his thoughts since the witness decided to interrupt him?
Maybe the witness will be able to respond if you want.
Thank you. My question is, will you, Director, recuse yourself, yes or no, from investigating or making decisions about the 60 individuals, including myself, that you identified as government gangsters? Yes or no?
Time of the gentleman has expired. The witness may respond if he would like.
And the answer was no, as I heard.
Christmas ornaments, drywall, and Jerry Epstein. Name 3 things that don't hang themselves. That's what the American people think. That's what the American people think. And they deserve some answers. And I know that you're not in charge of these investigations. But you talk to the people who are. And I need you to take a very respectful message today. Tell the American people what happened. And don't rush it so that they don't do a thorough investigation. But you and I both know they can make this a top priority and get it done more quickly than they normally would.
I indicated in my opening statement I wanted to talk about the death of Mr. Epstein. Do you concur with the opinion that it was a suicide?
That was the finding of the coroner, sir.
Okay. Do you have any evidence to suggest otherwise?
I do not.
How could this have happened?
Unfortunately, sir, the death and the whole situation is still under the investigation of the FBI and the Inspector General's office, and I'm really not at liberty to discuss specifics of this case. I can discuss issues around institutional operations, but I can't specifically talk about that particular issue.
With a case this high profile, there's got to be either major malfunction of the system or a criminal enterprise at foot to allow this to happen. So are you looking at both? Is the FBI looking at both?
The FBI is involved and they are looking at criminal enterprise, yes.
Do we have people in custody today of this high profile nature? Have we done anything to adjust since Mr. Epstein's death?
Sir, we take every inmate's life very seriously in the Bureau of Prisons. A high-profile inmate is no more important or significant in terms of our operations than just the average inmate that comes our way.
High profile, somebody's on a suicide watch.
I would like to explain our suicide watch system, if I may. I can't talk specifically about Epstein, but we have different tiers of response if we identify an inmate who appears to be have suicidal thinking. And I came into the Bureau as a psychologist. I worked with lots of suicidal inmates. I was working in our psychiatric facility in Butner, and I know how difficult it is to always be able to predict who is suicidal and who is not. But once an inmate is identified as potentially suicidal, we have a suicide watch operation that we can place them in. It's a very stark, very difficult setting where everything is stripped from the room except the mattress. They get a coarse gown like to wear that cannot be twisted in any way that they could hang themselves from it.
Right.
They have one mattress and one blanket.
Right.
And they are watched constantly. There's nothing else in that room.
Mr. Epstein on suicide watch?
Yes, he was. However, the average time on suicide watch is only about 24 hours because it is such a
it's up 72 hours.
situation. We then can
72
move on to
hours,
another tier of observation, which is called
3
psychological
3
observation.
days.
That happened in this case.
I can't speak specifically, but I am sharing this with you so that you understand our procedure, sir. They then can move to another tier, which is psychological observation, where they get their clothes back. They're in a more normalized setting. They are watched and scrutinized every moment of the day, but that is a much more normal environment.
They have roommates.
And I'm sorry, sir.
Do they have roommates?
No, they do not when they're on psychological observation because they're being watched continuously.
Mr. Epstein have a roommate when he allegedly committed suicide.
No, he did not.
Okay.
Then they move into psychological observation. Psychologists see them routinely, interview them repeatedly, and once it's determined that the threat of suicide seems to have passed, then the inmate can be returned back to open population.
Well, clearly it didn't work here, so we'll await the report because all the victims and Mr. Epstein have to have their heart ripped out. They'll never see justice.
Dr. Swear, can you think of any other incidents in the history of the BOP that have caused as much crisis for public trust for your institution as Epstein's death?
I can only speak for since 1976 when I joined the Bureau. I don't know prior to that, but I would say it's probably gotten the most public attention.
There are lots of taxpayers and citizens who've never thought about the BOP, and you have lots of good, patriotic, hardworking folks there. I get that. But in terms of a crisis of public trust in general, but also in terms of your workforce, this death happened in the middle of August, early August. It's Thanksgiving, and you're here to testify today, and you say you're not allowed to speak about this incident. I think that's crazy. Can you distinguish among types of investigations, at least for us? Because I'm aware of at least 3 Epstein investigations. You get a whole bunch of women who were raped by this guy. This is a sex trafficking ring in the United States. This guy had evidence. He's got co-conspirators, and there are victims out there who want to know where the evidence has gone. Can you tell us a little bit more about the different investigations? I understand there's at least one that you're directed by Main Justice not to speak about, but there are at least 3 investigations. Can you unpack them, please?
There are 2 investigations that are ongoing. One is the FBI's investigation, and the other is the Inspector General's investigation.
Both inside BOP, but there's a third one outside, which is why Epstein was in your institution to begin with.
Yeah, and that, sir, is completely out of my.
I get that. There's a lot here where DOJ has failed. There's a lot here that BOP has failed. Let's just be clear so we have a level set for everybody in this room. You're in your job because of this crisis, right? You come here today and you say you can't testify about it, but the reason you're director now is because the last guy got fired, right?
Senator, I can't tell you what I don't know. I have received no information from the FBI investigation yet, nor no information from the Inspector General. Once those entities go into one of our facilities, we are forbidden from talking to anybody in the institution. We can't send in a team and look at wherever there might have been a security flaw or something, but we are not allowed to talk to anybody in our institutions about anything that happened over the Epstein.
With all due respect, you still have an obligation to speak to the girls who were raped by this guy today. You may not have to speak about every particular of the guards that were arrested last night, but the fact that there is an ongoing attempt by the United States government to find out if there's still any evidence about the co-conspirators, you do have an obligation to speak to those girls who were raped today. You may not speak about the specifics of the charges against those 2 guards this morning who were taken into custody, but more broadly, you should be able to unpack, have we changed any processes about how cases like this are handled? It's been more than 90 days, and you said, I think your quote was, we treat every inmate the same. We believe in America that every individual has equal dignity, but not every inmate has equal value for future criminal investigations. Jeffrey Epstein was still to testify in a case. Somebody who's already been convicted, who may be on suicide watch, there are lots of good reasons to not want that guy to be able to kill himself. This is different because it isn't just about the individual inmate who might kill themselves. It's about the fact that that bastard wasn't able to testify against his other co-conspirators. So it is wrong as a management matter for you to say we treat everybody the same. We should be treating people who are yet to testify against other felons, against other rapists. They have a lot more priority for your institution, don't they?
Senator, pretty much all of our inmates that are in any of our jail facilities are pretrial. They're still yet to testify, to be involved, to share information on other cases. I don't know what evidence you're asking of me. If you're saying, was there any evidence in his room, in his possession at the time?
No,
that was all confiscated by the FBI.
In his brain, and in the cameras, and in the tapes that the American public well understands appear to not be urgent enough for the Department of Justice.
So it's very urgent for the Department of Justice, and it's all been confiscated by the FBI, and it's all part of their investigation. That's why none of that is shared with the Director of the Bureau of Prisons or anyone in the Bureau until the investigations are completed. Once those are completed, I'd be very happy to come up here and talk with any one of you that want to hear everything about we gleaned from those investigations. But until I have that information, there's nothing I can tell you. If I don't have the information, I cannot share anything with you.
Then how widespread is the problem of sleeping on the job? There are lots of people in the public who think this seems a very convenient excuse. And so tell us, is it a systemic problem? Do we have a lot of people who sleep on the job when they're supposed to be guarding federal inmates?
We have a few, sir, and we have been monitoring the cameras that are existing in every one of our institutions to determine how well and how effectively our inmates are, our staff members are doing their rounds and counts in the institutions. We have found a couple of other instances, and we have immediately referred those to the Inspector General's office. And I'm encouraging that if people just chose not to do their job, we're hoping the U.S. Attorney's Office will pick up those cases and prosecute them for us, because we don't want those people in the Bureau of Prisons. They are dangerous to everybody, the inmates and the staff. And so we are zealously going about trying to determine which of our employees are good employees who do their job, and that is the vast majority of the prison staff. But we do have some I know out there who obviously choose not to follow policy, choose not to do their job, and we want them gone. I do not want them in our institutions, and I am exploring those very, very carefully to identify them and get them out of our system. Now, if it's a training problem and they didn't know what they were supposed to do, that's our problem. That's management's problem. We have to do a better job training our staff. But if someone is well-trained, well-experienced, and chooses not to do their job, we want them gone. I assure you of that.
I'm at time, so I'll just give you a preview of something I'm going to ask you for the record after the event. You made a really important statement about drone drops of different kinds of contraband into your institutions. That's obviously a new and hard problem. That's a problem against which we have to play defense, but there's also new opportunities for offense. And so what your long-term strategy is inside the institution about cameras is something that I think a lot of us would like to hear more, and I'll send you a letter with some questions. Because Epstein's hallway should have still been monitored by cameras, even if his guards were asleep. And we don't have information about whether or not there were adequate cameras there. And so I think a lot of us would like to understand where technology dollars are going. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you, sir.
Senator Blumenthal's next, but just follow up on this. Will there be an IG report regarding what happened?
There should be. Usually after the Inspector General's office investigates, they do come out with a report.
If people are pending criminal charges, we're not going to interfere with their cases, but if there's an IG report, I promise you we'll get fully briefed by the committee here.
Come up with this. Christmas ornaments, drywall, and Jerry Epstein. Name 3 things that don't hang themselves. That's what the American people think. That's what the American people think. And they deserve some answers. And I know that you're not in charge of these investigations. Yes, sir. But you talk to the people who are. And I need you to take a very respectful message today. Tell the American people what happened. And don't rush it so that they don't do a thorough investigation. But you and I both know they can make this a top priority and get it done more quickly than they normally would.
Director, the first time you saw Donald Trump's name was in the Epstein files. Did you close the files or keep reading?
I reviewed not the entirety of the files, so
You haven't reviewed all of the Epstein files?
personally, no.
You're the director of the FBI. This is the largest sex trafficking case the FBI has ever been a part of. Buck stops at the top, and your testimony today is you have not reviewed all the files.
What I've been doing is been busy providing the safest country this country has seen in modern U.S. history in historic speed, because the men and women of the FBI are given the resources to reduce the homicide rate, to reduce the drug trafficking rate, to reduce the amount of children that are being trafficked. And
Well, it sounds like those children being trafficked appreciate the director reviewing the files. You said you don't know the number of times Trump's name appears in the files, so it could at least be 1,000 times. Is that right?
The number is a total misleading factor. We have not
But the
released
number
anyone's
at least
name
10,000
that we have not released anyone's
But
name
it-
in the
at least
Epstein
the
files
1,000
that has not been credible.
Director, could
We
it
have
at least be 1,000
released
times?
every piece of legally permissible information.
Okay,
You can
so
characterize the numbers however you want it.
I need my time, Director. It's sounds like if you don't know the number, it could at least be 1,000 times.
It's not.
Is
It's not.
it at least 500 times?
No.
Is it 500 times?
No.
Then what's the number?
I don't know the number, but it's not that.
Do you think it might be your job to know the number?
My job is to provide for the safety and security of this country. My job is not to engage in political
And that includes
innuendo, so
protecting
you can go out to the sticks and get your 20-second hit, your fundraising
Reclaiming my
article.
time,
And
Director.
keep going, reclaiming your time. The people of California
If
are being
Trump, like the
underserved by your
The president
representation.
is not implicated. Why not release everything that involves
We have released everything, the president and anyone else's side, that is credible and lawfully be able to be released. Your fixation on this matter and baseless accusations that I'm hiding
Also,
child
Mr. Massey.
pedophiles is disgusting. Anyone that says that needs to look at the stats alone and go back to the state of California, who's receiving the biggest surge in FBI resources through my redeployment because the cities of Los Angeles, San Diego, and San
Reclaiming
Francisco
my
are
time,
needed.
Director. Remembering your oath to tell the truth, did you ever tell Donald Trump his name is in files?
I have never spoken to President Trump about the Epstein file.
Did you ever tell the Attorney General that Donald Trump's name is in the Epstein files?
The Attorney General and I have had numerous discussions about the entirety of the Epstein files and the reviews conducted by our
Did you
team.
tell the Attorney General that Donald Trump's name is in the Epstein files?
And we have released where President Trump's
Did you,
name is in
it's
the
a simple
Attorney
question.
file.
Did you tell the Attorney General that the President's name is in the Epstein files?
During many conversations that the Attorney General and I have had on the matter of Epstein, we have reviewed
The question is simple.
who
Did you
and
tell the Attorney General that Donald Trump's name is in the Epstein files? Yes or no?
why don't you try spelling it out?
Yes
in a
or
month?
no,
Where's
Director?
the alphabet?
Yes or no?
No? A, B, C?
Director,
Yeah.
it sounds like you don't want to tell us. Did you tell the Attorney General that Donald Trump's name was in the Epstein files?
Why don't you try serving your
Director,
constituency
did
by
you tell the
focusing on
Attorney
reducing
General
violent
that
crime in this
Donald Trump's
country and the number of pedophiles that are
Director,
illegally
reclaim
harbored
my time,
in
Director.
sanctuary cities in
Director,
California?
reclaim
I'll
my
work
time.
with you on that.
Regular
You wanna
order,
work
Mr.
with us
Chairman.
on that?
Director, reclaim my time.
gentleman from California.
Did you tell the Attorney General that Donald Trump's name is in the Epstein files?
Question has been asked and answered.
You have not answered it, and we will take your evasiveness as a consciousness of guilt. Director, did Donald Trump ever say to you, just find and release the entire truth? Don't worry if I'm in it.
The instructions from the administration were to release all credible information, and we have done that.
Did Donald Trump ever provide information about Jeffrey Epstein as an informant?
Donald Trump has not been, and I can only speak for the FBI, an informant of the FBI.
So, Director, you played this cute shell game where you say you can't release everything because the court has said that it legally is not allowed to be released. But the court calls bullshit. Judge Richard Berman said that when you went to the court, quote,
Bullshit.
information contained in the Epstein grand jury transcripts pales in comparison to Epstein investigation information and materials in the hands of the Department of Justice. So let's move on, Director. You wrote a book called Government Gangsters. You identified 20 individuals in that book. You put me on that list, at the top of the list. Thank you. My children find it flattering. 20 of those individuals have been investigated or have had adverse actions. Director, considering that you have identified these people as, quote, government gangsters, will you recuse yourself from making any investigation decisions about these individuals?
Anyone that has been terminated at the FBI has been done.
No, the question
failed
again-
to meet the muster of the
Director,
constitutional
I will work
obligation.
on the
No, no.
audio-visual capabilities.
I'm going to borrow your terminology and call bullshit on your entire career in
I'm
Congress.
reclaiming my
You've
time,
been a
Director.
disgrace to the American
Director, I'm
people.
reclaiming my
You
time.
can reclaim your
Will
time all you
recuse
want.
yourself?
Chairman, you're gonna allow a witness to speak this way?
Mr. Chairman, would you recuse yourself?
Gentleman has no time. Mr. Chairman, would you admonish the witness not to insult members? Gentleman has no time.
Mr. Chairman, just
Many will remember.
quick point of order. Could the gentleman be extended an additional 20 seconds to complete his thoughts since the witness decided to interrupt him and continue his?
And the witness will be able to respond if you want.
My question is, will you, Director, recuse yourself, yes or no, from investigating or making decisions about the 60 individuals, including myself, that you identified as government gangsters? Yes or no?
Time of the gentleman has expired. The witness may respond if he would like.
And the answer was no, as I heard.
Christmas ornaments, drywall, and Jerry Epstein. Name three things that don't hang themselves. That's what the American people think. That's what the American people think. And they deserve some answers. And I know that you're not in charge of these investigations.
Yes, sir.
But you talk to the people who are. and I need you to take a very respectful message today. Tell the American people what happened. And don't rush it so that they don't do a thorough investigation. But you and I both know they can make this a top priority and get it done more quickly than they normally would.
As I indicated in my opening statement, I wanted to talk about the death of Mr. Epstein. Do you concur with the opinion that it was a suicide?
That was a finding of the coroner, sir.
Okay. Do you have any evidence to suggest otherwise?
I do not.
How could this have happened?
Unfortunately, sir, the death and the whole situation is still under the investigation of the FBI and the Inspector General's office, and I'm really not at liberty to discuss specifics of this case. I can discuss issues around.
We are now 266 days away from the midterms, and today lawmakers were supposed to be able to go look at the unredacted version of the newly released Epstein documents. But multiple lawmakers who went to review those documents say some of the text is still blacked out with no explanation as to why. Here's what Congressman Thomas Massey and Ro Khanna said about what they saw today.
What I saw that bothered me were the names of at least 6 men that have been redacted that are likely incriminated by their inclusion in these files. There are 6 men, some of them with their photographs that have been redacted, and there's no explanation why those people were redacted. What we're after is the man who Jeffrey Epstein trafficked women to. We want those names published. We're not out to embarrass people. And the problem is, we went in there hoping to see that 302 forms. What we found out is those 302 forms were redacted before they got to the DOJ. At least one is a U.S. citizen, at least one is a foreigner, and the other 3 or 4 have names I'm not sure if they're foreigner U.S.
And which field do they work in? Is it finance, banking, political?
One is pretty high up in the foreign government, and some are there. One of the others is a pretty prominent individual.
Pretty prominent individual. Why were these names redacted? This was also the day Epstein co-conspirator, there she is on your screen, Ghislaine Maxwell, sat for a deposition with House Oversight Committee. No surprise, she invoked her Fifth Amendment right and declined to answer any questions. Watch this.
Ms. Maxwell, were you a close friend and confidant of Jeffrey Epstein?
I would like to answer your question, but on the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer this question and any related questions. My habeas petition is pending in the Southern District of New York. I therefore invoke my right to silence under the Fifth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution.
Her attorneys say she will testify if and only if President Trump grants her clemency. When MS Now asked the White House about this, the press office referred us to previous comments from Trump and Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, saying the president is not thinking about granting that clemency. Today, the family of the late Virginia Giuffre, a victim of Jeffrey Epstein, released a letter directed directly at Maxwell. They ended the letter with Virginia's last wishes for Maxwell. Quote, Ghislaine, you deserve to spend the rest of your life in a jail cell, trapped in a cage forever, like you trapped your victims. When it comes to Ghislaine Maxwell, it looks like her attorneys are now asking very powerful people to make a choice between truth and justice. They can either let her escape justice and hear the truth, or keep her behind bars as she keeps her mouth shut. One or the other. But here's something very important to remember. Just 4 years ago, DOJ prosecutors said she engaged in a pattern of dishonest conduct, that she lied repeatedly about her crimes. Even Trump's very close allies like Mike Johnson and Todd Blanche have openly questioned whether her testimony would even be reliable. So the choice her attorneys want people to make seems like a pretty easy one. And the White House keeps saying that Trump is not thinking about giving her clemency. But here's a very important thing. We all know that what Donald Trump says one day does not matter at all. He could change his mind at any moment. So even if he ruled out giving Maxwell clemency, there is no way to know that for sure until Trump leaves the White House. I want to so many questions. Not just about the scope of the terrible things he did, but about the network of people who remained in touch with him after his 2008 conviction. How did he become so wealthy? How did his network become so big? And was there any indication that extortion played a part? As the New York Times reported, Epstein drafted letters to very powerful men where he hinted at some kind of shared secrets. These are crucial questions, and they are not going away, no matter what Donald Trump or any of these very, very, very powerful redacted men, redacted names, no matter what they say. With that, let's get smarter with the help of our leadoff panel tonight. Luke Broadwater is here, Pulitzer Prize-winning White House correspondent for the New York Times. Leland Caldwell, chief correspondent for Puck, and Susan Glasser, staff writer for The New Yorker. Okie doke. Leanne, today Jamie Raskin said in the files he saw a reference to a girl as young as 9 years old. Tonight, Republican Senator Cynthia Lummis told Midas Touch that very development changed her mind. Initially, she did not see what a big deal it was to see the Epstein files. She said they could move on. Now she says it's hugely important. What else are you hearing from your sources on the Hill?
Yeah, so Steph, it's that exact thing that when people actually dig into this and hear the details and read some of this, that it really becomes apparent at how horrific, how terrible, how disgusting all of this is. Because for so long, people who weren't really involved or caring much about the Epstein files, knowing very little, it was just a distance thing over there. But the thing is that now that people are being able to see some of these dynamics, some of the emails that go back and forth, and some of these details, is absolutely horrifying. And it goes back to what some of these Republicans, including Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is no longer in Congress, and a few other Republicans were saying that why this is so necessary. Now you have on Capitol Hill, you have a lot more people, mostly Democrats, but who are really anxious to get to a lot more of this information. You have members of Congress today, Thomas Massey, Ro Khanna, who said that there are still so many questions, even though they went to the Justice Department to have more access than what was released to Congress. They said the redactions are still unacceptable. There's too many, and that the Justice Department is not still following the law, Steph.
Lauren Boebert was asked by a reporter. She said she thinks after seeing what she saw today, and she's going back tomorrow, Maxwell should have a longer prison sentence. Susan, we just heard sound from Thomas Massey talking about the names of 6 men that were redacted. There are so many unanswered questions about Jeffrey Epstein's network of powerful men. How much faith do you have in this environment with so much going on every day, we're going to get any kind of answers?
Yeah, Steph, I think that's really the question here. We're in a situation in Washington where the functioning of accountability has broken down. And I think that's why you're seeing this sort of exceptional thing of Congress passing a law demanding the release of these documents at the same time that you don't have a functioning Republican committees in either the House or the Senate working to exercise oversight really in a meaningful way over the executive branch of Donald Trump. You have the Justice Department of Trump and the FBI taken over and politicized. And, look at the contrast between what's happening here in the United States, where we have reporters talking about this, we have individual members of Congress, but as far as we can tell, we don't know that there's any investigative process to look at this, whereas the political scandal unleashed by Congress releasing these documents, the accountability seems to be happening in places like Great Britain, where it's a bigger scandal for the Prime Minister of Great Britain, who never even met Jeffrey Epstein, than it is for Donald Trump, the President of the United States, who's all over these documents. And I think, people would be well advised to sort of take a breath and say, how is it possible? We have a sitting Commerce Secretary here who was apparently in business with Jeffrey Epstein, despite having lied and said they had nothing to do with him. And where are the Republicans calling for him to resign? Where is the investigation of that relationship? And, so it just, to me, it's really a sign of the breakdown in Washington.
But that example in the UK, Susan, is there only one difference? Like, why is the UK treating this different than the United States? Well, one reason, Donald John Trump, isn't that?
Well, if only it were just one man, but at this point, it's a broken system, Steph, in addition
I know, but I'm
to
saying
Donald
John Trump
right? Now,
protecting.
where's the Justice Department? Where's the Justice Department functioning right now? In Donald Trump's first term, there was still the possibility of investigations, but Trump has taken out the public integrity section of the Justice Department. He's turned the FBI into an immigration enforcement agency. According to a great report from the New York Times recently, 20% of FBI agents have been redirected to immigration functions. Our system isn't working because of Donald Trump's election and what he's done to the executive branch. But, there's a lot of people in our system who are not doing the jobs that they're supposed to do, and not just the president.
All right, well, let's talk about somebody else in his administration, Luke. Howard Lutnick. Several lawmakers are calling for Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, to resign over his appearances in the Epstein files. And I want to be clear, he is not accused of any criminal wrongdoing. The White House is standing behind him. Is it because they really believe in him or his case? Or is it because they're just never giving in? I spoke to a very senior person in the business community today who just said, no, they don't want to set precedent. We still have millions of pages we have not seen. And if they punt Lutnick, what will that mean for others? And the comparison they gave is, well, there's a medical contributor that CBS didn't get rid of, and they doubt CBS cares about that medical contributor. But given the millions of pages we haven't seen, if they punt somebody at that level, and then a bigger fish ends up named, then they're in quite a pickle.
Yeah, I think your contact is right on the logic and the reasoning there. I mean, Howard Lutnick may not have been exposed as abusing anyone or doing anything illegal in these files, but his public statements were exposed to be not true. He said that he had one interaction with Jeffrey Epstein, and that was it, one and done, he said. And then you see years later, he's actually in business with Epstein. And years later, there's talk of him visiting him at the island, and his name comes up again and again in the files. And so, their interactions were more robust, and he did have more ties to Epstein than he let the public believe. What else came out today is that Donald Trump apparently also has made statements that contradict evidence within the files. He and his press secretary have said he threw Jeffrey Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago, and there's evidence in the files, according to Jamie Raskin, who read them today, that that's not true, that Epstein was never thrown out of Mar-a-Lago. If we're going to, I think in the administration's view, if you're going to start firing people or throwing people out of government because they lied about Jeffrey Epstein, well, you may have to start looking all the way to the top. So, yes, there's a lot of information coming out, and a lot of people in the Trump administration and elsewhere are being exposed for having much closer ties to Jeffrey Epstein than they have said publicly.
Coming up, get there, and I'm all sweaty and running shorts. Donald Trump walks in, hovering and smirking like a Cheshire grin. The president and the pedophile.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein?
He's been dead for 6 years.
Trump supporters see Jeffrey Epstein as the devil.
But billionaire Jeffrey Epstein,
We need to release the Epstein list.
I call it the Epstein hoax.
continues to haunt Donald Trump.
Trump really seems to be hiding something.
That's next on 60 Minutes. No matter the ultimate outcome of Donald Trump's face-to-face dialogue with Vladimir Putin in Alaska, just getting the meeting to happen is a significant achievement for the US president. It's clear Trump is not without talents. On his home front, he's been particularly adept in his ability to endure scandal. In the last 5 years, the president faced 4 criminal indictments, 2 impeachment trials, and in a civil case has been found liable for sexual abuse. Yet last November, a majority of Americans still voted for him to lead them.
Now, though, there are chinks in Trump's armour. The reason is his bumpy handling of the so-called Epstein files, evidence that may or may not exist about the powerful connections of America's most despised